Are you interested in getting bragging rights over your friends or making big bucks in an NFL survivor pool? Then stay tuned to this episode where we'll talk about critical tips to guarantee success for your next survivor pool. Hi everyone, I'm Gary Kurtzman.
And I'm Eric Lee. And we are the Fantasy Football Consultants. Gary, I'm really looking forward to this episode because normally we talk about season-long leagues or we're talking about daily fantasy football. Today, we get to talk about survivor pools, something which is growing in popularity, both in the small circuit and Yahoo and ESPN run these massive pools.
Oh, and they're fun. They're fun. And, you know, for bragging rights, nothing beats survivor pool where you can lord over your friends all week that your team, you know, you're still alive and kicking, you know, your other friends who have fallen off and, you know, lost in the survivor pool, you know, you get to lord over them all for the rest of the season until you too become victim you know, to your own picks.
What I like to do, Gary, is after I'm still alive in the survivor pool, I go to my friends who have been eliminated and say, each of them, I go to another one and say,
yes, or, you know, if you're going to be the winner, you say,
show me the money.
Because you can make a lot of money off these things. So what is a survivor pool? Well, you know, a survivor pool, as the name would suggest, means that you are surviving. That's the whole name of the game. What does that mean? Look, you pick one team every week, an NFL team, right? You pick one NFL team every week, and all they have to do is win. It really is as simple as that, Eric. You look at all the slates of all the games. There could be 16 games in the weeks, you know, less if there's bye weeks. You only have to pick one game that you're confident that your team is going to win. The only catch is, once you've picked a team, you can't pick that team again for the rest of the season. So if you make it all the way to week 17, having picked a winning team every week, you know, you might be left with some, you know, pretty mediocre teams that you are hoping like heck are going to win because you've used up all the good ones.
Yeah, so let's talk about how do you have success in a survivor pool. One of the things that people love about the survivor pool that may not like fantasy as much is it's all about the game. You know, it's not one individual player, it's all about the team and who's going to win. So you've got to figure out who's going to win. So our first tip is be conservative in the first couple of weeks. What do we mean by that? You know what? Some people say that the easiest weeks are the first couple of weeks, Gary, because you have the slate of any team you can pick. And this is what I say to that. The first couple weeks are the hardest because we know the least about what's going on in the NFL.
No, that's right. That's right. Because some teams that you thought were going to be, you know, terrific contenders, it turns out that coaching change, that strategy change they made, or maybe due to injuries or other unforeseen events, they're just not nearly as good as you thought they were. You can figure out the lay of the land of who's good and who's not by the time you get to maybe week 3 or week 4. But for those first 2 weeks, like Eric says, be conservative. Know that you don't know nearly as much about teams now as you will in a couple weeks.
So being conservative to me means 2 things. One, pick from one of the top 4 of the highest odds, right? Who's the biggest favorites? And 2, don't worry about saving a team. You don't know who the best team is right now. So don't worry about saving. You may be trying to save a team that actually isn't that good. I remember in the past, at the beginning of last year, people were like, I want to save Denver. Denver sucked last year. There was no reason to save them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, so that it gets us right into, frankly, tip number 2, and that is utilize Las Vegas, people. They put out the point spreads, and they are more knowledgeable than anybody else because they're the only ones that literally have billions of dollars riding on the NFL games. Utilize the point spread. If you're going to pick a team that you think is going to win, make sure that Vegas agrees with you. Doesn't mean that you have to pick the team with the highest point spread, but it means that you should pick one of the teams that has a relatively high point spread because if you're confident that they're going to win, make sure Vegas is too.
So the third pick is the way Survivor Pool is set up, as Gary explained, is you can pick only one team as a winner once through the whole season, but you can pick the losing team over and over and over again. no problem. In fact, the anti-Cleveland Browns strategy was great last year.
Would have won you the Survivor Pool, for crying out loud. How's that?
So, Gary, what do you think if you were to forecast who is the new Cleveland Browns? Do we have one? Do we have a team?
No, there's not going to be any new Cleveland Browns because it's so hard to go 0-16 that it has literally only happened twice in the entire history and landscape of the NFL. But we can tell you who's going to be the most likely 3-13 team, 2-14 team. Apologies for our viewers in in Cincinnati or in Miami or in Buffalo, right? But these are all the teams. They're at the top of the alphabetical list, but they're at the bottom of the NFL winning list. They just don't quite have enough talent. They certainly didn't last year or the year before. They had losing records. They're going to have losing records again. If I were to pick one team, it would probably be the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen just isn't ready yet. They're going to have to go with A.J. McCarron for most of the season. Yikes indeed. They don't have any kind of marquee wide receiver. Their running defense was poor last year. Their passing defense was poor. They got Vontae Davis. That'll help shore up the passing a little bit, but it's just too little and not nearly enough. Vegas would happen to agree. I think they're 150-1 odds against winning the Super Bowl. And if there's going to be an anti-Cleveland strategy last year, it might just be anti-Buffalo this year.
LaShawn McCoy is another year older. He hit the 30 mark, so that's usually the decline for running backs.
Yeah.
So especially when they're going to stack the box against them.
No, that's right. So if you're going to stay, have a contrarian strategy team, so there's a couple things that you want to temper that with, though. And here's the fourth tip, and that is stay away from what I want to call volatile factors, external factors that may affect both teams, but you just don't know how it's going to affect, and it's the unpredictability.
It's so important, Gary, because you think as the player, as the person picking, that you're picking the better team. You think they're the better talent. So you want nothing external getting in the way of it.
That's right. So what does that mean? That means, for instance, Thursday games, the short week games. Teams react differently. Both teams are going to be played on Sunday. Both are going to have to play again on Thursday. Who's going to do better on short rest? The answer is you don't know, because teams have short rest so infrequently. You don't have enough data. Just stay away from those games. When it rains significantly, not the drizzle factor that basically doesn't statistically affect passing games at all. What if it actually rains? Well, which team is going to do better in the mud if it's on grass? Which team is going to do better emphasizing the running game when the defense knows they're going to emphasize the running game? Again, surprisingly, very few NFL games are played in the rain. We don't have enough data to know. Stay away from games like that. Winds, we're not talking 10-mile-an-hour, relative breeze. We're talking 40-mile-an-hour gusts. Does it happen? Sure. Does it happen enough so that you know how teams are going to react? No. So stay away from games like that.
Yeah, and last year, Gary, I still remember the snow game with Buffalo and the Colts. And who knows who would have won that game. It wasn't even really football. They were not throwing the ball at all. It was just a run fest. And you do not want your survivor life to be on the line because of the weather.
Great example. Absolutely.
So let's go to the fifth tip. It's kind of an obvious one. You want to make your selection as late as possible, that whatever your league rule or whatever ESPN or Yahoo allows. Why? Because you get late-breaking information, right? Someone gets hurt. You know what? You do not want to be picking a team and find out that, guess what? A key lineman is down. A key position player is not going to play. Or contrary,
I guess where the allegory would be, you also don't want to pick a team because you're confident that they're going to win because the other team has one of their stars injured. And guess what? You could have found out that star was going to play because you could have had the late-breaking news. And if you don't do that, you just bet your survivor life without having all the information. And, you could pay the ultimate price for it.
Yeah.
Now, we talked a little about this in the beginning, but the sixth tip is if if you can, this is an if you can kind of tip, try and save the favorites. So, Eric, I think the viewers, you and I, we all know who, the favorites of the most wins of the NFL season, certainly the ones that are most stacked with talent. Not too surprisingly, the ones that were in the playoffs last year. You got your New Englands, your Phillies, your Minnesotas, you got your Pittsburghs, your Los Angeles Rams. I think I've probably rattled off the more or less consensus top 5 teams, with apologies to Green Bay and New Orleans. Sometimes, especially in the beginning of the season, when you don't know how the NFL landscape's going to shake out, you might want to use one of those teams. But if you can, if there are other teams, say in the second tier, that happen to have a great matchup that week, they happen to be facing the Bills or the Bengals or even the Browns, which will be better this year but not good enough, Dolphins, teams like that, then yeah, that's a great matchup. Please go ahead and use them as much as you can. Save the really good teams as long as you can.
So we're going to be with you every step of the way during the season. Gary and I are going to pick against each other, and Gary, we're going to have some mystery competitors to be revealed in a later show that will be picking against us, and we're going to see between all the competitors who's going to be the sole survivor.
And Eric, that's going to be a lot of fun, and the viewers can follow along not just with us in our pool, but in your own pools as well. I hope you appreciated the show. I hope you appreciated the tips. I hope they give you success for your survivor pool. If you liked what you hear, please comment on the video. And if there are tips that, maybe you think would be valuable that we didn't share, please comment those as well. We are trying to form a community, and I think the other viewers would benefit from that too.
We really want to hear, how did you do last year in your survivor pool? What was that game that knocked you out? What week was it, and what team? Because Gary, I think we all remember what got us.
That's right.
So if you made it to the end of this video and you like our content, hit the thumbs up like button, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe to our channel. Until next time, we will see you in the next video.
See you in the next video.
Just when you think this show is terrible, something wonderful happens. What? It ends.